Using Poetry in the Classroom by Carol Chambers. So I've designed an activity on creating haiku in the classroom. My design is aimed at working with fourth grade primary students, so that's ages 9 to 10, learning English. Taking a look at its main aims, it's about getting students to get their thoughts on the topic onto paper, and with the ultimate aim being to produce writing. It also aims to encourage students to be creative and to have fun in the process. Creating haiku allows the children to review and build on their existing knowledge of the language, using adjectives, nouns and verbs. And it also works on the close observation of images with a particular focus on the sensory elements. So moving on to the activity itself, it would take 3 lessons to complete. The first lesson focusing on what haiku is, with examples and exercises on how to write it. The second lesson, the students would brainstorm their topic and produce their haiku. And the last lesson is where the poems would be read out, there'd be a class vote, and the winner and 2 runners-ups would be selected. Finally, the students would do an illustration of their poem. This slide should be shown to the class before starting the activity so the students know what they're going to do. So step 1, the teacher will explain that they're going to do a small piece of poetry, and the teacher will do a brainstorm on what haiku is to raise interest and to get students thinking. Then we need to introduce haiku poetry and ask if anyone has heard of it, explain what it is and that it's a traditional Japanese form of poetry formed of 3 lines with a total of 17 syllables following the pattern 5-7-5 on each line. They should be shown an image like this one to understand this visually. They should be shown other examples of haiku poetry as well, like these. And it would be advisable to show them a video on haiku like this one. I'll send you the link separately for you to watch it. The next step is to choose a subject and a topic. For the purpose of my activity, we're sticking with haiku's traditional subject, which is nature, and we're going to do the 4 seasons with my particular example based on winter. Although haiku can be any subject. Photographs of winter will be shown for the students so they can closely observe them and start to think of words and phrases related to winter. They will have seen from the examples, but will need reminding that haiku focuses on the sensory elements. The teacher will show how to create a haiku poem using winter as the example. He or she will write winter on the board with 3 columns, sights, sounds and feelings. And the students are asked to think of expressions or words relating to these. Here are some examples they will probably say. The next step is for the teacher to provide the students with a structure for them to follow. So when they create their own, they won't have so much difficulty. The students, in order to create the haiku poem, will need to have 1 line, or it's a good idea to have 1 line as something that can be seen, another as something that is heard, and the other as a feeling. Now this order doesn't have to follow this way, but for the example is following that order. So the students would have to fill in these gaps for this example. But it would be advisable to make sure they understand that they need to focus on the right number of syllables. The students will come up with possibilities using words from the table to complete the poem. Hopefully they'll come up with words that make sense like this. And then extra practice should be done using another example. Again, hopefully they will complete the gaps with something like this. In lesson 2, it's the students' turn to create their own poems. The teacher will explain the instructions that they will work in 4 groups, with one group, each group having one of the seasons. And the teacher will write the names of the 4 seasons on bits of paper, and it will go in a pot for them to do a draw. So one member from each group will have to draw out their season. They'll be given images of their season and work in groups as per the example to complete the table template as we saw before, and using the pictures for inspiration. Once this is done, the students will then work in pairs to create their own haiku poem. Here's an example of some pictures that can be given to them for summer, and the same should be done for the other seasons. The group working on winter would have to produce different words or phrases so they're not copying the ones that were done as the example in class. In the last lesson, we have step 9, where the poems will be read out and there will be the vote for the winner and the 2 runners-up. And the last step will be for an illustration of the poem, and the poems will then be displayed in the school corridor. I think it'd be a nice idea for the 3 winners to have a certificate congratulating them on their poem. The teacher can evaluate their work using, for example, this rubric from the Read, Write, Think website. And focusing now on how this can help children learn, well, haiku poetry is based on a syllable structure, so it can really help children understand how words are broken down and pronounced. It's a simple form of poetry, so a perfect starting point in the foreign language classroom if poetry hasn't been introduced before. It makes the students think about words they already know and encourages them to find out new words, as well as encouraging them to practice writing in a creative way, and encourages close observation around the sensory elements. And finally, it teaches students to closely examine the world around them for writing ideas. That's the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it and have learnt the benefits of using poetry in the classroom like I have learnt. I'm looking forward to trying it out, and I hope you are too. Thank you. Bye-bye.